Jing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, or I can hear you, and I can see you well. And Shane Jing from EMAC, he's going to talk about EMAC, and you're in the East Coast New York area right now. But yeah, feel free to introduce yourself for a little bit, and then you could go straight into the presentation.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Let me share the screen here. All right. All right. So just want to make sure everyone can see my screen, the presentation here. All right, great. So as Jing mentioned, so first of all, thanks Jing for the invitation, and I'm very excited and glad that I could participate in this conference and present about EMAC. So first off, my name is Shane Jing, and I'm the current administrator for EMAC, and I'm here to give a brief introduction about EMAC. So let's get to it. So here's the outline of the presentation. So first of all, I'm going to give a brief introduction of what exactly EMAC stands for, and then I'm going to go through the EMAC current functions of EMAC, and I'm also going to briefly touch upon the challenges as well as the future work for EMAC. So let's get to it. The first question that I always get when I speak to people about EMAC is, what exactly does EMAC stand for? So here it is. EMAC stands for EOS Mandarin Arbitration Community, and there you go. The four initial letters stands for EMAC. The primary function and the objective of EMAC is intended to promote and provide education as well as training of EOS governance awareness within the Mandarin community. We also serve as a link intended to bridge the gap between Mandarin and non-Mandarin communities, especially around governance topics and the related issues. So this is really the objective of EMAC and why we establish this self-organized community. In terms of the functions of EMAC, here are the brief outline of what EMAC is currently doing, and these are really along the objective of trying to promote the EOS governance within the Mandarin community. So there are a couple of ways and approaches that within the current governance framework that we could help promote more awareness and participation in EOS governance from Mandarin community members. The first item that we participate in is really the source and nominate Mandarin-speaking candidates for entering ECAF arbitrators. These are actually the first concrete work that EMAC was working on when we established this self-organized community. Our intention and our objective there is really, given that current at this moment, ECAF is really the sole arbitration forum permitted by the interim constitution. What we could do to help improve the representation of Mandarin community is to recommend and nominate more qualified Mandarin-speaking candidates, and ultimately make them. Hopefully, they could be accepted as the interim arbitrators. And we had great success in collaborating with ECAF on this front, which I will talk about briefly in the next slide. The second concrete work that EMAC has been engaging in is providing assistance for the Mandarin community during the arbitration process, there are two reasons for there are two particular reasons why this kind of assistance is needed, given ECAF is already established. The first reason is that there is a little bit lack of understanding and lack of understanding of the arbitration process, or in general the U.S. governance framework within the Mandarin community, and therefore hand-in-hand assistance is needed, and education and training is needed for the community. The second part is that a lot of the Mandarin community members are not familiar or does not speak and does not read English, and therefore there is great need for EMAC to provide assistance there. And I'm going to talk briefly about that in the next slide and provide an example. The third item is that we, given that EMAC is trying to promote the governance awareness within the Mandarin community, we are also providing education and training materials and courses for the Mandarin community in these fronts. So in terms of EMAC has been collaborating with ECAF with great success, and we have nominated multiple greatly qualified candidates for interim arbitrators. And most recently, we have two of our candidates has been accepted formally as the interim arbitrators, and they are Mr. Siqi Yao and Mr. Stephen Zhan. So as far as we know, these two are the first Mandarin-speaking interim arbitrators available at ECAF, and they have been hit the ground quickly and start working on arbitration cases. And as one of the recent ECAF arbitration orders is actually coming from one of these interim arbitrators. And in terms of EMAC's assistance for Mandarin community members for submission of claims to ECAF for arbitration, on the right-hand side here is a media report on one of the cases which we are extremely proud of at EMAC, that we helped the victim preparing and submitting the claims to ECAF, and successfully get the emergency arbitration order issued from ECAF, and have the account well about 70,000 of EOS tokens has been stolen, and we have the account successfully frozen, and this has been received very positively by the Mandarin community, and we are proud of the achievement, as well as the collaboration with ECAF, as well as the BPs who executed the emergency arbitration order. And last but not least, here is our education and training materials, and some of them we have already completed and have already presented to our Mandarin community, and some of them are still forthcoming. They are broadly categorized into 4 sections, all the way from basic knowledge about blockchain up to knowledge about governance, safety of token usages and wallets, as well as choice of exchanges, and finally, detailed knowledge about arbitration and specifically applied to EOS. So with all that said, EMAC is not short of challenges, and as expected, the biggest challenge EMAC currently faces is really funding sources and the resources available for EMAC. As you probably all know, at the moment, EMAC is a completely volunteer-based organization. Every single member of EMAC working on volunteer basis. All the training materials and assistance, and also sourcing and nominating arbitrators are completely based on volunteer work. And therefore, there is great need of funding for EMAC to be sustainable going forward, including the bootstrap stage, as well as more stable and sustainable stage for EMAC. Of course, two related challenges that EMAC is facing include source of our staff members, both recruiting and training, as well as community outreach for both domestic within the Mandarin community, as well as community outreach to the non-Mandarin speaking overseas communities. With that said, the future work for EMAC are laid out here. So we're going to continue working on the US education and training and provide more refined and polished training material and courses on topic of governance, anti-fraud, token safety usage, and all these education for our community members to help them use and contribute to the EOS ecosystem in a safe and sustainable way. And EMAC will also continue to provide governance assistance for both the Mandarin community, as well as lending our experience and lessons we have learned during our 2 months of life to other non-English speaking communities, including Korean community, as well as Spanish communities, and all these non-English community to help them integrate themselves into the US governance structure. And finally, we are very excited to learn about the recent initiative by US New York in yesterday's talk, that there will be proposals to allow for multiple arbitration forums to register themselves, and essentially in a free market format. And if that allows, and if all the referendum and constitution update permits, then we would consider a Mandarin community-focused arbitration forum. So with that, and that is basically my presentation and introduction about EMAC, and I would open floor for questions.
Great. Does anyone have any questions? They're probably at the bottom. Oh no, that one was from me. So does anyone have any questions for Shane? So I don't see anything right now. Let me see if, so how big is EMAC right now? You might have mentioned that. I probably missed it.
So EMAC currently is composed roughly about around 10 volunteers. Some of them are ECAF interim arbitrator candidates who essentially would like to be nominated, and at the same time they're also working as volunteers for EMAC on both the case assistance as well as education, providing training materials to familiar themselves with the process, and they just get ready for nomination for ECAF interim arbitrators.
Okay, great. And David has a question on how can we help EMAC?
So as I first of all, thank you very much, David, for asking this question. So at the moment, one recent example is that EMAC actually in need of a worker order system to help us formalize the process of interacting with outside community members in terms of submitting claims and collecting materials, etc. So I'm using this as an example in the sense that given we don't really have a way of a route of revenue, so we essentially opened up to communities for donations in terms of work order system. And luckily, we had one of our victims, actually the case that I mentioned, the victim who lost 70,000 EOS, and EMAC assisted in terms of submitting the claims. And we received the donation of the work order system from the victim. So we are really appreciative of the support of the community. And going forward, in terms of funding sources, what we are thinking about, first of all, for the bootstrap, if the work proposal system is still going to be intact, we would potentially submit a proposal for a work proposal requesting bootstrap funding source. But longer term, to have a sustainable revenue for EMAC to operate, we will likely follow the similar route as ECAF in terms of collecting fees for the cases that we provide assistance, and potentially down the road, if EMAC itself becomes an arbitration forum, we could also outline the fee structure for the cases that EMAC would arbitrate on. But these are all more of a long-term objective, which of course depends on a bunch of things to happen, including but not limited to multiple arbitration forum allowed within the constitution framework.
All right, thanks a lot, Shane. Really appreciate your presentation, and we'll look forward to getting updates in the future. Yeah,
thank you very much for having me.
All right, great. So yeah.